started with this morning's workshop. We have Janice Persons with Grounded Communications. They're very excited over there. And here we're going to talk about harnessing AI. Do we by chance have any representatives from Koch Agronomic Services? They are our sponsor today, so if you see them, give them a thanks. But Janice is an ag communications pioneer, which could lead you to think her skills are dated, but don't jump to that conclusion. She's always enjoyed playing with new technologies and seeing how they can improve or augment communications. She's done testing on her own time as well as pushed the limits at various ag comm jobs. She loves finding new tools that make work easier and communications clearer. Before blogs and social media, she created an e-newsletter for the holidays, and she joined people a decade or so younger to be among the earliest adopters of social media as a component of ag communications, taking the moniker JP Loves Cotton and turning that into a personal brand. As she started Grounded Communications, learning to podcast was a priority, and now she's built an online training program called Grounded in Ag. She's tapping digital tools for their creation and promotion daily. Janice has worked for farm magazines, a New York PR agency, a small cotton seed company, and spent more than 2 decades with the industry's leading ag innovation firm. In 2023, she was inducted into the Ag Relations Hall of Fame for the positive impact she's had on the industry, and she earned her master's degree in journalism from University of Memphis in Tennessee, and her bachelor's degree in mass communication at Phillips University in Enid, Oklahoma. So let's welcome Janice.
Thank you. I know some of you guys may have sat in on a conversation I had yesterday around branding. There will be some connectivity to that. It won't be duplicative, really, but you might hear similar words on some of it and similar tools. And I will say, because of some of the things I heard yesterday, I went and made changes on my slides. Slides were due on Friday, so people watching on the video, it's not his fault if he doesn't have the right slide up. It's all my fault. So I'll be running the correct slides for the people in the room. And occasionally there might be a little bit of on the video. So I apologize for that in advance, but I wanted to make sure that we were representative. This is a small enough group and it's a neat enough topic, and there's been a lot of discussion around AI that instead of me just giving a slide deck, I would really appreciate if you guys have tips that you think, oh, she didn't mention this. Speak up in this room, please. And if you have questions, you can ask them at any time. I don't think we have to wait until the very end. I know I'm going to be running to get out of this and get set up in the next room for a copy of this same presentation, so I want to make sure you guys get all your questions answered. All right. And I want some woohoos just to make them. So who's excited about AI? Woohoo! All right. I mean, they can't be interrupting our talk if we can't interrupt theirs. All right. So when you think about AI today, it seems like AI is freaking everywhere. Like it permeates society. People talk about tools. There are websites all the time. There's a new application. It's amazing. It's incredible. You have to have it. The other thing people are talking about all the time is the impact, right? Just this morning, Vogue debuted some things, and then in really small font, it said that all the images were created through AI. So they didn't use any models for the new series of the cover and some of the things in Vogue magazine. And it kind of gets people a little bit excited about what that impact looks like to the people that might be involved. And I know for us in writing, it certainly has been a threat for a lot of us. And in ag communications, we're already under threat, right? The ag business is in a tough time economically, and that means it's hard for us. So having AI come in right now, the impact is worrisome. So we're worried about what it may do to our businesses as well. Now, given that, I want to understand where everybody in the room is on AI. So if you feel like you're absolutely, positively in a sea of overwhelm from all the AI stuff being thrown at you, can I see hands? Some honesty, I appreciate it. All right, how about some people that have questions, not sure on everything, but using it some? Okay, that's a good representative group. How about people who are already actively using tools kind of regularly? Awesome. And finally, is there anybody who is like all in, let's get rid of all the people because AI can do everything? I didn't think so. Okay. So I'm in the same group that a lot of you are in. I have some tools that I use, and I'm going to talk about them as I talk about different things about AI, but I don't want you to think that I'm saying these are the tools you need to use. They're the ones that I've chosen that fit for me, and I've chosen them for great reasons. So you can feel free to push back if you think something is better. It's a space where you can always find something new in AI. But I want to tell you which tools I'm going to be showing more screenshots from than less. I've chosen, instead of ChatGPT, I'm using Perplexity Pro. And I don't know how many of you guys use it, but you'll see as I go through some of the screenshots, because I'm always afraid that internet access in the room won't be available, I'll have screenshots. Perplexity Pro, part of the reason I like it is it always shows me what sources it's using as it generates something. I like to go back to the original sources and see why they pulled in what they did. I also like being able to suggest what sources they look at. And by upgrading to a pro account, you have a lot more depth of search. And so when I'm writing about, say, beef genetics, I might say, rely on Oklahoma State Extension Service as one of your primary sources, that kind of stuff in the prompt. So that's why I've chosen Perplexity. Another one I'm going to talk about a good bit is called Cast Magic. It'll take audio. It can be a recording from your phone. It can take video, whatever it is, and it'll convert it into a written transcript. And for those who are way younger than me, you don't know that people like me used to sit with headphones on and a transcription pad on my foot where I'd be doing a micro cassette to try and get the exact, those were tough days. That was like walking uphill, both to and from school kind of stuff in the world of ag communications. But Cast Magic takes it and you can have it run specific prompts, so we'll talk about some of that. The other is Descript, and I'm only using it for video editing and things like that. It can do really cool social video, all those pieces. And for some of you, I see a camera or two. I do have a QR code at the end, so if you want all the slides, you can just download those from my site. Don't worry about taking pictures of all, unless you just really want pictures. And then I'm going to mention Canva very briefly. I think there are some tools there that really make my life easy, and so I'll mention that. Talking about the tools kind of gets me in a bad spot, because I think instead of talking about tools, first we really ought to talk about what do you want to accomplish and what is going to really make your life easier. And I think the world in general around AI talks to us about tools. So now I want to kind of shift it over and get you guys to think about what are the things that I could absolutely use help with, because I sit there and I wander aimlessly in the sea of, there was a shoe cartoon once where he's sitting at a desk and he never moves. Somebody interrupts him. He's like, don't you see I'm writing? But his fingers never touch the keyboard. Sometimes I sit at that screen and I look that way and it's like, oh my God, could I just get some help getting out of this sea of overwhelm of all the information I took in and all that kind of stuff, after you've gotten great interviews. So that's one of the things that I really like, is getting ideas. And it may be just a first pass at a headline. It may be helping me figure out of this, what's something that feels different, right? Sometimes I catch that in the moment. Sometimes I can miss them. And some of these tools can help me with that. So I love the idea that they can give me ideas. I'm going to refine them every time, but it gives me new ideas. I'm especially bad at YouTube titles, I got to say, because there's like something about their algorithm on YouTube, and if you're posting there, horrible. The other thing that I'm really actively engaged in is time savers. The things that don't leave me paused at the keyboard for hours, but that spend time doing it, and it feels like a waste of my time, but it feels like the quality of the end product needs it. And so one of those things I'll say is like podcasting and videos. We all interview a lot of people who don't speak for a living, and sometimes they don't sound as smart as they should because they're not used to talking for recordings as much as we are. There will be a lot of ums, a lot of uhs, and I typically take out a good number of those, and I remember painstakingly taking those out of recordings in the past versus being able to have some AI tools help me with that. So some of those kind of tools that still maintain the authenticity of the speaker, but doesn't let them get dragged down. I don't know, are there other things that you guys are actively looking for in terms of efficiency? Those were the two biggest areas. Anybody have something I should be adding to the list? All right, in that case, we're going to continue on. First of all, no matter what tool you're using, you really have to think about what makes a good prompt. How are you going to write a prompt that really delivers what you want it to deliver? And it can be kind of intimidating, I guess, or it can be frustrating if you can't get these things done right. So one of my guiding principles is that I'm going to use it like an intern. And I've had various interns over my career, and Steve knows. We've had some great interns and some less than great interns when we were working together, usually great. But for me, if I have an intern who's good at their job, I can say, here are the things you need to know to do this. Here's some background documents, maybe. Can you get us started? Can you present me a first version, right? And that way, you're empowering the intern to get things really moving. They're going to feel supported enough. It's the same with AI. If you don't give AI enough information on the front end, it goes out on the internet and tries to figure out what in the heck it is that you meant when you said you wanted something. So a really good example for this talk, if I just went in and asked ChatGPT, I'm giving a talk on AI and efficiency for communicators. Give me an outline for my talk. I mean, how good could a talk like that be, right? Never mind that I'd already written most of the talk before I did this, just to see, like, was I going to miss anything? But then I went in and I said, all right, here's the kind of talk I'm doing. It's for these kind of people exactly. I have this much time. Here's the description they're going to have read before they come in the room. Knowing all of that and all you know about how I use Perplexity, what does an outline look like? And if you look at how different that starts, this one starts with why it really matters, and it talks about transforming workflows. And it gets right to prompt engineering fast, because I ask my AI bots all the time, how can I improve my prompts? Versus, let's understand what AI is. Okay, let's make sure we talk about some tools, right? So the amount of information and organizing that information in a way that helps AI really get what you're going for, that's one of the top things. Another is to think about it almost as a conversation so that it's ongoing, right? And what is the sequence that you want to do those prompts in? AI can help you do some pretty complicated research if you want it to. Help you unearth some sources and ideas that you haven't thought about. But it can also just deliver much better information if you give it this. So I did 2 different ways. I was working on a demo reel for my training program. And on one, I explained about what that program was, where it could find that program online, and said, what should I do for a demo reel on that? On the other, I started, the first prompt was, what makes a really good demo reel for training programs? What is it that grabs people's attention around training programs? And you're gonna see the kinds of content I get back, the suggestions and information I get back are really different. You know, this one tells me to start with a compelling opening, but it immediately goes to the complexity of agriculture and all these things. On the next version, it starts with a strong hook and is saying, these are the kind of visuals you're gonna need for your program. It's a much more deep kind of dive into suggestions that I'd wanna consider. Again, I didn't do the video ABC the way it suggested, but it saved me from going out and finding, on this one, the sources, you can see there are 20 different sources used on this one, and there were 11 sources used on the first one. The complexity of the understanding of things is so much different, right? And you can see on this one, oops, whoa, wow, I went way deep. What did I do? Okay, we're almost there. I touched the touchpad, I do know what I do. But you can see here, the differences in those numbers of sources really does. I mean, it's the same for me, right? If I have extra time to watch extra demo videos, I'm gonna get a better one. This one comes back and it's showing me some of the videos that it watched in the sources that are listed up there. So I can go back and see how they did it, right? And then by the time I get to grounded in ag on the second prompt, because like the second question, I came back through and said, okay, now knowing all that, it really does go with a dynamic visual, and it gets right into farming and agriculture and helping people understand agriculture. So it's given me good ideas of what to search out in my own video library, because sometimes I can sit there for days going, I don't know, what should we lead with, right? Like it's the same in written form and video form for me. Those getting something started is always the worst. I can always rework it. The problem with AI not knowing what you really want or not having the right sources that it immediately goes to, it'll start to hallucinate. Has anybody had hallucinations that just, whew, and they scare you? I mean, like you're going, whoa, how could I rely on a tool that's gonna give me this kind of crap output, right? You know, like how could it happen? I mentioned to Greg the other day, I had a friend who doesn't do PR, who doesn't work in media, and who had decided she needed a press release. And so she put a lot of information in her chatbot, and she says, I need a press release for so-and-so. And later she called me. And I go, oh, what you're asking for is really a media backgrounder. And if you send a press release, the formatting of it to an editor is going to go, why would they have made up, how did they have quotes for an event that hasn't happened yet? You know, like, what is the deal? They really just wanted to invite members of the media to the event. But all they knew, and anybody who's worked with corporate clients may know, people know to ask for a press release. What they may need is something very different, and that's where our expertise comes in, and helping people understand those limitations on AI. What you really need sometimes is a well-crafted LinkedIn post and a few private messages to members of the media who are really going to care about that topic. A press release will make more media think, why would I bother sometimes, right? Because you send out too many press releases. One of my favorite things is to create images online, and I've done some really bad word clouds. I mean, I will tell you some of the AI bots where they put like parts of one word with a part of another word, and it's like genitive instead of sustainability and regenerative. You can get some wild things. I asked for a redhead at Cotton Harvest. For people who don't know cotton, you would never have a combine in a cotton field. Never, ever. Not with that many white things in the field anyway. And I mean, she looks lovely though. She's got beautiful red hair, which is what I did mention. And then over here, I don't know how many hands she has, but I wish I had that many when I was traveling sometimes, because doing all the things looks way easier in AI. But again, people are going to be using these tools that don't really understand the business. And sometimes it's going to be us that has to go, whoa, wait a minute. What have you done? Sometimes we get it just with sweet corn pictures instead of yellow dent. I know we've all seen some of those things where somebody will say, well, that's a dairy cow and we're talking about beef. And then somebody goes, well, it's a dairy steer. And those are in beef a lot of the time. So, that one gets murky, right? But yellow dent corn versus sweet corn is a pretty quick one. One of the things that I think a lot of people do on chatbots is we haven't gotten to where we have that added depth. When I talked to a friend the other day, she does a lot of work with banks, and she has so many documents that she's built in to her platform that every time it's going to give her something, because she has fiduciary responsibilities to the bank. So how can you go back and check that? On mine, on Grounded in Ag, I have different things that I've written long before I was looking at any AI, the things that you decide at 9 o'clock at night you're going to need for tomorrow, and you sit down and you just hammer it out. Those usually express the excitement of whatever I'm doing, and the clarity is much better than normal. It's weird. But I've added some of those documents to really help it understand the voice that I want things delivered in. So maybe the editing isn't as heavy as it was in the past. Maybe it's that really good first draft from an intern that's had multiple years experience already, instead of an intern that's in their earliest career, days at college and hasn't had practical experience. So if I can get something that's further down the line. And I just want to say, all these tools are coming on so fast that you really need to look at how can you get the most out of individual tools. And you may need to cancel some tools, because different people are beginning to layer in so many different things into their. If you don't check what those icons are each time, you're probably going to be sorry. So this is just a screenshot on Perplexity. A lot of times people will just start typing in their prompt without looking at what those icons are. If you do it as a research versus an immediate, you know how AI immediately starts answering your question when you finish typing and you hit return? You start seeing that come back. If you use the research instead of that, and on ChatGPT, there's another name for it, but it's like deep research or something like that. Every one of these tools have a way to go deeper. It will study things for 3 minutes before it gives you anything. And then it'll organize it almost like it's somebody's term paper. So this is one of them that I did where it was, I'm giving a presentation on interpersonal communication for a group in a couple of weeks. And I haven't read journals recently, all those kind of things. So let's have AI help me with my backgrounding. And if you look up there, 74 sources were reviewed as it put this together for me. And then you see, it's written in a way where it is like a research paper. Great headings throughout, has charts at the places where charts should be. all of that kind of information. And you can see it's footnoted as you go. Instead of AI, even on Perplexity, where it's going to give you the sources, it just throws all the sources at the top. Occasionally, you'll see footnotes. But the difference in this is amazing because it's gone in great depth to understand it. And then it's in that thread, right? So if you start a thread with a research thing, you've already got it on your path. That leads right into how you save the really good stuff, because if you're like me, you have the really good stuff, and then you have, like, I'm in Prague, and I want to know, on the subway, something, or you have weird things that you just add into your AI because it's now become like your Google or something. So how do you save the really good stuff? Or how do you create the really good stuff? I've got spaces for different projects. That means that there's already a set aside. I can immediately go in, and on Perplexity, on the navigation side, it's on the side, I can go in and go to spaces, and I can pick up whatever I'm working on today, and it'll bring up every thread that I've run on that, right? So it'll come up with each individual query underneath it. So for Ag Media Summit, I asked it things like, what is the typical audience like in percentages? I know it's professional communicators, but what is the ratio of educators versus, members of the working media versus LPC and organizational kind of things? It's amazing what it can find out. And it delivered me last year's attendance list because it knew I was interested in figuring out how that works, right? Same thing for Grounded in Ag. I'll have the things that I just showed you about how to do a demo reel. Also have things about, put together a quick pitch letter. All of those things, every thread I've ever done for Grounded in Ag is in the same place. So it's easy for me to find the thread that I want to go back and add to. And all of those are coming together in that space of AI so that it's getting smarter that all of these are interconnected. You can also save it as a bookmark if it's something that's going to be important, but you're only going to run one thread on, something like that. A lot of people are now beginning to write custom GPTs, and we'll show you a couple of those examples. But they all have different GPTs or different AIs that you can go in. This was just in Discover when you go in on Perplexity. It shows you, do you want to look at money managers? Do you want to look at what's in the big, beautiful bill? Because enough people are already searching for those kind of things that they've just got those available to you. Do you need to plan a trip? All of those. Now on ChatGPT, they'll call them GPTs, and you can have them custom or you can pick up things that are out there. I had to pick up the one where somebody said they could write a really good press release. Because I'm really skeptical of press releases being written by bots because it just sounds, too many of them sounded like they were written by bots well before we had bots writing anything. But this is exactly what it asks you. And so you can have one of these set up. If you have something in your office that you have to set up, that you have to deliver, say, I would love to set up one when I worked at an agency and I had to report my hours. If I could upload the documents I'd worked in and I knew it was in a confidential space where it was saved on my side of the AI, and that's what you can get with these custom GPTs, is where your stuff stays on your side of the wall and it brings in things from the internet. And have it help me with my activity reports for the hours that I worked in the agency. That would have saved my life at times. But now it's even things like summaries for meetings that you have to hold, and you have to send everybody notes about the meetings and, all those kind of things. Anything that needs to be in a different kind of format or that needs to be reported a certain way so others can see it, you can do GPTs or bots to do that. So Cast Magic is different. Cast Magic actually has a lot of prompts already written for it. These are the ones that have like an emoji on the front. The others I've written, and you can see that they say that they're editable. I can edit those. Those are things that I wrote because I wanted them. And then up at the top, it's not on this screen, but there's actually a place where you can go and you can look through other prompts that members of the community have shared. And so for these, it'll not only provide you the transcript, you can see here me getting a question and answer with Carl Bradley, who's a plant pathologist at the University of Kentucky, but then I ask it for a summary and bio. And so it gives me what I need as the quick kind of nuggets for what I'm going to put on my coursework, because I have digital courses. And then this is what you see as the prompt. It actually tells it how long I want it to be, tells what kind of person's going to be reading it, reminds them that I use the words "our experts," that kind of thing. And then when I paste it in, it looks beautiful, like my website, right? And then I always edit. I edit myself, so I certainly edit the heck out of an AI. This is another version where I was doing it for my podcast. And the thing about podcasts is they weren't SEO friendly, so you have to have written content on your podcast. But really, most people are just going to listen to it. It'll help you get discovered by a few people. So I have blog posts that it puts together, and then I usually end up changing it. And you can see, again, the transcripts on the side. Similar type of prompt, a few major topics, and then it'll give you the quotes. And this is something I think a lot of media could find really useful. We record all our interviews anyway. We're going to have to go back and play that interview time and time again. It's going to transcribe it, and it's going to pull out some of the quotes for you. So I love that last night, as I talked to some folks, I mentioned that this cheese farmer, who I already had in here, but I didn't have the quotes in on it yet, so I know this is one that our slide guy doesn't have. But he had no idea there was artisan cheese, really. He was looking to add a creamery to his family's business, and he said, okay, I'm gonna do this. He found the American Cheese Society, went to a meeting, and was blown away by the flavors that cheese could offer, because he lives in rural Missouri. He bought Kraft cheese, store brand cheese, right? Like, he had never been to artisan level cheeses, just never had the opportunity. He was blown away by Rogue Creamery, I mean, he was blown away. But then when he came back and he started looking at his business model and he was talking to somebody, they said, no matter what, as a business, you need a good cheddar. If you don't have a good cheddar and you're trying to make cheese, good luck. Good cheddar is going to be the thing you can always count on in the Midwest. And he's like, okay. And then he figured out cheese curds, right? But those quotes, having them pulled out of it for me, if I only used it for the one thing. And then that goes on the website looking pretty similar. You know, I really wanted to talk about artisan cheese because I think that is a real differentiator from farm. You've got the creamery on site. Not a lot of people get that experience outside of Wisconsin. But, all right, we're still going. You guys haven't asked many questions. I'm going to keep going. Descript is one I use as an AI tool for video, and it would remove that I just did. It will actually find what your filler words are. Maybe when you pause to think, you say, but what I was thinking is, and you use that phrase 10 times in an interview, it might go, okay, that's getting a little repetitive. And for me as a person who has to speak a lot, it was really nice to know what some of my fillers were. So I'd stop maybe saying them so much. I don't always pull them out, and you can go through and you can pull them out individually, and you can make sure it maintains their character, but it just doesn't feel as repetitive. Because when you're talking to somebody, you never notice that. But when you're listening to a podcast, it's amazing how differently that will come off. You can also do some really cool stuff. I mentioned yesterday, you can change where people's eyes are connecting to you. So a lot of times people are looking down at their screen or something instead of looking at you. If it's a person who normally would look people in the eye and have that as part of their trustworthiness, you can actually go in and it will help edit that. Unbelievable. And I've only done it on one, but it was the person who was looking at, like, the screen was over here, the camera was over here, and I had her talk to me for a little bit over here before she moved over to her screen, and it was still able to make it so that she was at least occasionally looking over, right? So it didn't, like, move her whole head or anything like that, but it did look like occasionally she was looking at us and then looking at the screen instead of totally focused. I would be really careful with that, and I mentioned it yesterday. I did an interview with Temple Grandin. I did one with somebody else on the autism spectrum. I would never do that to them because it's not who they are. They don't look you in the eye. That's part of their gift. They may be brilliant in other things, but that's not something they think they need to be doing, and it's a little aggressive. So I would never use that tool on people that would feel uncomfortable with it, but I actually sent it back to the person and said, hey, what do you think about this? And I just gave her 2 short clips, and she's like, that's amazing. Yeah, I do look, I'm more trustworthy. She's a member of the Extension Service, so we like trustworthy. But there's a lot of different things you can do. What I do mostly is some of these kind of pieces for social media. And you can upload that 20 or 30-minute video, and you can tell it you need 6 to 9 clips, 60 seconds to 90 seconds. It'll come back, and you can see over here on the side why it's picked out different things and what. It is pretty cool. But it'll go through, it'll listen to it, and then tell you, okay, here's one, and then here's the transcript for it. And then I can just change the coloring so that it suits my brand and that kind of thing. But to me, getting short form video out of video that I've shot horizontally, long form, it's just so painful. It just hurts to go and find 1-minute things to put on Instagram when what I'm really selling is the benefit of a 45-minute lesson on the topic. But it is the kind of thing that gives people interest enough to go back and look at what else I have, right? So it really is helpful. And I love that it focuses in on things like his cows' names. All right, we're getting close to the end, so I think I'm going to be in okay shape. I think with AI, you need to push back on it. You need to say, what other factors might you need to know about to do better? Give it a thing that says, okay, I asked you for headlines, and what kind of publication were you thinking I write for? Look at this one. I need ideas that would actually fit my brand. You know, if you don't have them all together, push back and say, no, it needs to sound more like something a farmer would read. Those kind of things, if you push back and keep telling it to try something different, it really will. Like your best interns, right? Like they might bring you something they think is great. But if you push back and go, we really need something more along this line, they're going to come back with better ideas. And I think it makes a big difference. I will say, how much further can I push you on some things? Like, how many more questions can I add in this thread because I feel like we didn't get it done? And then I'll go, okay, summarize all this because we're going to start a new thread and we're going to start a different, I think we've lost some of it. So give me a summary of this. I'll paste it in the next thing. We'll try better. And I think those kind of things really do kind of pushing and pulling work. The other thing is our comfort levels are going to be different. There are going to be people in our organizations who want to use AI for a lot of things, and there are going to be people who don't want to use it for anything. I'm usually in the gray matter in the middle. It happens in politics and stuff too, right? But so helping people understand, no, I've never wanted to push moral limits on us saying we did this. That's why I think like it really works for me to summarize a video and pull out quotes and some of those things, because to me that morally fits. I'm still doing most of the work. Like I shot the video, I traveled for it, I did da-da-da-da-da, right? it's writing a one paragraph and then some key topics. I don't think the workload is similar at all. But if you start having AI do a whole lot of the workload, to me, at some point, I'm going to have a problem with it. Everybody's point may be different. And I think companies are trying to figure that out. Companies are issuing enterprise-wide bots, enterprise-wide solutions, and it's going to be important for people to have that conversation. With that, this is my QR code so you can get the slides. It's on groundedcomms.com. I think I'm getting really close on time. Courtney, am I? Yeah. So a couple of hot questions people have, and then if I'm not able to get through all the questions, I'll be around at lunch. Yeah, Warren.
Warren Clark, Janice, we've known each other for a long time. You're always out on the front doing new things. Appreciate your talk. I have a client who is looking for a person with 5+ years of marketing communications experience that includes everything that you can think of. It seems to be in the job description that a communicator is now expected to do. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for how a person who has maybe 5 out of 6 things on their resume, and there's that 6th thing, there could be a tool for perhaps
Yeah.
bring that in a specific thing.
I think that's why you web programming. So that one's going to be interesting. If you expect somebody to be able to do strategic communications in-house and also do web programming instead of outsourcing any of those pieces, that sounds like a really big ask, in my opinion, for one person. If you have to do newsletters and you have to do to do the actual programming of the website is different than doing content support on the website or blog. Not in communications programs. Web development is almost exclusively in IT programs. And so it really is 2 different sets of skills for me. I think there's a lot of, depending on who the client is, they may not understand what they're asking for when they say web development. So they may be asking for web content support. They may have had somebody build the site and code the site, all of those pieces. I mean, I will tell you, I went in on Perplexity the other day, and I didn't like the way my website embeds videos. So I put it on YouTube and then said, okay, now for me to put it on this site, what kind of coding do I need and what would that look like? I mean, so some of these tools can help you with some of those basic coding things, but that's not web development for people like me. Web development means something very different. Yes, you had a question.
Just a comment, it sounds like you actually are kind of all in AI. And I just want to say, great presentation. I think it was one of the better ones of the conference. Just very real
Thank you.
in the use and the guardrails and how you should feel about it. I think you should feel guilty about using it. It's a tool.
Right.
There was times when we used to hand brush paint cards, or used to use brushes to paint cards, and we don't do it anymore, and it's because it's more efficient. And
Yeah.
you can still make an amazing piece by doing the work and using these tools. So I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. I do think it's like going from a typewriter to a computer or some similar kinds of tools, right? I mean, for a lot of us, there were different places. I didn't ever actually write on a typewriter, but my mama did, right? But it is one of those things, and I think in this environment, it's really easy to feel challenged by it because so many people have such extreme perspectives that it's kind of hard. Thanks for that compliment, too.
I would like to echo that and say this is the most practical AI session I've been in, so I really appreciate it, and thank you all for coming, and let's just give Janice a hand of thank you.
Thank you. Yay. Yay, it's good to feel good.